Hello everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to talk about Dark Cloud 3 and all of the details surrounding it. For those unfamiliar, Dark Cloud 3 is a highly sought after sequel by fans of the series. It's been over 18 years now since Dark Cloud 2, aka Dark Chronicle, was released in Japan. And although it's been a very long time, there's still many passionate fans in the Dark Cloud community, and we're all in agreement we'd like to see another game. Since it was never officially made, there's pretty limited information about it, but we're going to take a look at everything that's available to us. I've gathered up all of the news and media about Dark Cloud 3 that has come out over time. Right now we may not have much hope, but we should look ahead and see that Level 5 has always had a lot of interest in making another Dark Cloud game. Dark Cloud was Level 5's first game and was one of the earliest games on the PlayStation 2, and they used the capabilities of the new hardware to their full extent. Initially, its sales in Japan were underwhelming, but after releasing it internationally, its popularity rose greatly and it became loved by many fans. Their unique ideas for the series, including the diorama and randomized dungeons, was something new, and made it stand out from other Japanese RPGs from the PlayStation 2 era. Players were given an action RPG where you could build, fight monsters, fish, and much more. Then they released Dark Cloud 2, which improved and refined these gameplay elements to make another RPG masterpiece that sold even better. After their initial successes, they even went on to develop Dragon Quest VIII with Square Enix. Akihiro, the CEO of Level 5, happened to be talking to a producer and he told them his deep love for Dragon Quest. And what they said was, if you love Dragon Quest so much, why don't you make it? And so given this opportunity, he did. Level 5 had a strong beginning with the Dark Cloud series, which became bestsellers and won several awards, and then they scored a deal to create a Dragon Quest game, an opportunity that many others had wished for. All of this had happened within the first 5 years of their company. They've also developed many other popular and loved series since then, which has built up a loyal fan base and has defined Level 5 as an internationally famous studio. So after Dark Cloud 1 and 2 had done so well, fans kept anticipating what would come next and were left with a lot of questions. If the series was well known and the players wanted more, then why not make a sequel? We're going to explore what Level 5 had planned all along, and we'll answer as many questions as possible. This is the story of Dark Cloud 3. So one of the first instances of Dark Cloud 3 being mentioned was in an art book for Dark Chronicle that was released in 2003. One of the pages contains some concept art and a short article written by Akihiro. This is his message to the fans. It's already been half a year since Dark Chronicle was released for sale. Up until now, we've received a lot of response from the players. Trial and error is an essential part in game creation, but with Dark Chronicle, I think we've been able to provide an answer to both the wishes of the users and our own line of thinking. This is a short message, but SCE and Level 5 are planning a new release. This might be a sequel to Dark Chronicle, or a successor, or it might be an entirely new work. I can't tell you anything official yet, but I believe that not long from now, the time will come when we will be able to proudly say, this is the next world that Level 5 has created. Until that time, please keep supporting us. So this message does show some skepticism about what they were planning to make. They were developing a new game, but Hino said it could be a sequel or an entirely new work. Besides this message from the book, we wouldn't hear anything new for a very long time. Before we go any further, it's important that I mention something else first. In 2019, Hidden Castle, who runs the Dark Cloud Compendium, released an interview he did with an anonymous source at Level 5. And this interview revealed what is perhaps the most interesting fact about Dark Cloud 3, which is that Rogue Galaxy, another game developed by Level 5, was originally intended to be Dark Cloud 3. Thanks to this source, we have some information about how this happened. They say that Sony did in fact greenlight Dark Cloud 3 in 2003, but over time it eventually became Rogue Galaxy. There's several reasons why they changed it. Level 5 had become tired of their same formula used in the first two games, and Sony as their publisher wanted something different too. The diorama mode was originally meant to be in a larger scale planetary diorama, but it was apparently dropped pretty early on because Sony didn't understand its use in the game. They wanted Level 5 to create a more standard RPG experience. Besides these interviews, there's a lot of evidence that could be found within Rogue Galaxy itself. Looking through both the Japanese and US releases of the game, we can find quite a bit of files that were left behind. Using some tools to extract the data from the game, we can see some unused images left on the disc. There's two different images labeled DC3 title. The first one has a surprising name header on it. It's labeled Dark Chronicle Rogue Galaxy. For those who don't know, Dark Chronicle is the name used for releases of Dark Cloud 2 outside of North America. This image features what looks like a slightly different version of the Dorgan arc in space. The other image appears to be an unused menu that never progressed very far. It looks like they only did a little bit of work on it. There's not much else to say about it, but still, this image was also labeled DC3 title. So in my opinion, these two images are a big piece that shows Rogue Galaxy was in fact meant to be Dark Cloud 3. And with the next files I show, you'll see that the game was developed under this name for at least a few months. These images were probably forgotten over that time and never got deleted. There would likely be a lot of other files relevant to DC3 on the disk, but weren't named as such and were just used for Rogue Galaxy. The success of the previous Dark Cloud games is why they went forward with Dark Cloud 3, so even though it was changed to Rogue Galaxy early on, the title shows they may have wanted to keep it as part of the series, maybe even as a side story. It's tough to say when they changed their mind on this. With the diorama being removed, which was a key piece to 1 and 2, and Sony asking for more changes, it was probably just a matter of time before this happened. A few more bits of info left behind are 2 of the launch files from the Japanese release of Rogue Galaxy that were still labeled as DC3 on June 6th and June 24th of 2005. But a few months later on November 28th, we can see that the name was changed to RG Project. Level 5's website used to have this concept art on it as well, and this was before the name change to RG Project shown in the launcher files, so it's likely this could have been Dark Cloud 3 promotional art. But we know from Rogue Galaxy that this is actually Zerard, which is a planet with a futuristic city that covers its entire surface. This concept depicts the many unique buildings, airships, and its civilization. It's titled Enter the New World, which is an early hint to the game's large-scale space travel. The website was pretty small at the time and only had this bit of art on it, along with some other shorter pages accessible from a now defunct Flash menu. Nothing else about Dark Cloud 3 was added to the site, unfortunately. A recent discovery has also revealed the identities of the characters shown on the Dark Chronicle artbook page. Originally, these characters were shadowed out in order to conceal their identity, but the completed art of both these characters was shown in a Rogue Galaxy artbook that was released in 2005. And what we found out is that the drawing of the hero was actually a beta design for Jaster. You can see how strong of a resemblance the blonde hair and the outfit has to his finished character. And then the drawing of the woman was a beta design for Kisala. Unfortunately, the shadowed out design was never fully shown here. So we know at least these two were Dark Cloud 3 characters early on. Jaster was also apparently known as Genus before his name was changed. There's a few more relevant pages in this art book where Akihiro Hinu and Kentaro Motomura, who was a well-known producer at Sony, talk about the efforts they put in and what they wanted from Rogue Galaxy. In Akihiro's interview, he says, "I wanted to create a form of entertainment that will attract a lot of users. I really wanted to create a form of RPG entertainment that will make a lot of users want to play. I wanted to create something new, a game that would be loved by many, like Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy. For that to happen, it was necessary for the users to understand the scale of work, and how much effort we were putting into this game. We made sure the visuals gave that masterpiece look, and we were really careful with how this game will look from the outside. Usually when we create games, we don't get too deep with the thinking, but for this one we constantly had the idea of making a game that will be accepted by a large group of people in mind. Of course, we made sure to make the game fun and interesting. We made sure that the game won't be turned into the artist's egotistic work, but more like a good quality circus, a good quality entertainment. That is what we were aiming for when creating Rogue Galaxy. I took all my knowledge and past experiences and was able to create this wonderful RPG. If you can enjoy the RPG world through Rogue Galaxy, that would be great. Welcome to our entertaining galaxy." Then on the next page, Kentaro said, "This is an epic RPG with pure commitment and zero compromise. We have been working with Level 5 since Dark Cloud, and when PlayStation 2 was launched, we made sure to fully show the technical and visual appeal of the new hardware, and as a result, the game sold more than 1 million copies worldwide. One of the reasons why Level 5 got recognized worldwide was that when producing the overseas version, they did not just make a translated version. Even if it meant that some areas had to be remade from scratch, they did not stop working on it until they were satisfied with the result. The work completed under such an attitude naturally received glowing reviews in the end. The second game, Dark Chronicle, further spurred their commitment, and in recent years, Level 5 had become involved in the development of Dragon Quest VIII, which I believe can be called a nationally popular RPG. Their latest work, Rogue Galaxy, is a work that takes pride in pursuing the possibilities of the current hardware to the limit, and is filled with the uncompromising dedication of Level 5, which has grown far beyond the time of its debut. I hope that many people will enjoy all the commitment that Level 5 has put into this game." So to summarize, we have a lot of evidence that shows Rogue Galaxy was first developed as Dark Cloud 3. We have the leftover files that are named DC3 title, one of those being a menu image that says Dark Chronicle on it. Then the launch files that list the game as DC3 project. There was also the next Dark Cloud characters from the Dark Chronicle art book, which were revealed to be Jaster and Kisala. With all we discovered here, we can also conclude that the information provided by the anonymous source from level 5 is real and trustworthy. I think Rogue Galaxy did have some potential to contain some sort of diorama system where you would build on all the different planets, and in a much larger scale than the previous games. But still, the problem they quickly ran into was how to tie it into the story they wanted. Like Sony was saying, what would be the point of the diorama this time? In the first two games, you had to rebuild because the entire world was destroyed, and did they really want to go with everything being destroyed again? It would be difficult to find a new scenario that would give it some purpose. Either way, they did want a new story with unique civilizations and world designs that were complete. Kentaro Matamura also said they wanted to try something new because they were bored with the consistently similar worlds. This time, instead of world building, the game would be more about world exploration. Each planet would have something new that makes it interesting to explore, whether it be a massive city, or if it was covered in water, forests, or deserts. Kentaro and Naohige, who was another producer from Sony, described their thoughts about the new things they tried in a few development diary videos. They even mentioned that fans who like the diorama system from Dark Cloud would find the new factory system familiar. You would combine items in the factory to create new ones from recipes that you find throughout the game. They also said in these diaries that they had some inspiration from Star Wars.
With Rogue Galaxy, we decided we would try something new, something along the lines of a sci-fi series. The idea was a good combination of Miyazaki's animation and the space operas in Star Wars. Level 5 was created for swords and magic fantasies, but we got bored with the consistently similar worlds, so we wanted to try something new. There are various planets, civilized ones, uncivilized ones, some have dense forests, some have shabby deserts. On each planet you land on, you'll discover something new.
My name is Naohige, and I'm the US producer for Rogue Galaxy. Level 5 really set out to make it so that you're kind of immersed in that world and you kind of lose yourself in that world.
Fans of the Diorama mode from the Dark Cloud series will be familiar with the new factory system. The player can take items A and B found during their adventure, then combine them to create new items.
Although the supposed Dark Cloud 3 project that turned into Rogue Galaxy was released, Level 5 still had interest in making another Dark Cloud game. However, Level 5 also had many other games they had to deliver for fans over time, and they had other priorities after their success of Dark Cloud 1's US release and then Dark Cloud 2's. Many other popular games by Level 5 include the White Knight Chronicles, Professor Layton games, and Dragon Quest VIII. Level 5 began their production of Dragon Quest VIII towards the later stages of Dark Cloud 2's production. During this time, Akihiro Hino collaborated with Yuji Horii and Square Enix. He first got involved with Square Enix when he was talking with one of their producers and voiced his criticisms of their past games, but also expressed his deep love for it. That's when they asked, if you love Dragon Quest so much, why don't you make it? He ended up making a Dragon Quest demo in 3D and framed it as a competition. And so, he took up Square Enix's offer and began the creation of Dragon Quest VIII. Dragon Quest VIII did end up using a modified version of Dark Cloud 2's engine, which is called the Dark Engine, so there are even remnants of it on this game too. Curiously, it also included this line, which can be found within the game's ELF file, and it's labeled as Dark 3/DC3 sound, but that's the only bit contained in Dragon Quest VIII, although if you've played the PS2 version of it, you can really tell that it's a level 5 game, and even the sound effects are very close to, if not the same, that they've used in the past. The sound folder was left behind because they were working on Dragon Quest VIII near the end of production on Dark Cloud 2, and since they shared engines, they probably forgot about it. It's some pretty good proof that they were working on Dark Cloud 3 though, and that they were using the same engine to do that, which meant it was most likely going to be released on the PS2 like the others. How it ended up on Dragon Quest VIII is a mystery, and was probably just a mistake because there's no other files labeled DC3 there. In an IGN interview in 2010, Akihiro Hino talked about how there's still interest in Dark Cloud 3, and that many people still ask about it. Apparently they even plan to put a Dark Cloud character in another one of their games. And they actually did end up featuring a variation of Osmond in White Knight Chronicles. His appearance is similar and easy to recognize, although his voice and the spelling of his name is different. Once again, he's the leader of a rabbit-type species called the Windwalkers. Anyway, let's check out this interview.
In regards to Dark Cloud sequel, right now we are working on Shirokishi, so at this time we don't have any plans to make a Dark Cloud 3, but every time we speak to media, or foreign media, that is something that everybody asks for. So it's something where maybe perhaps we have to make something, but that'll come after PS3, or I mean, Shirokshi. So what I will say in regards to Shirokshi is that we're going to have a character from the Dark Cloud series appear in the game, and we feel that fans of the Dark Cloud series will enjoy some of the functionalities that we are planning for the game.
So this interview once again shows that fans have not forgotten, and that Level 5 is aware of our interest. But still, they're busy with so much more. Level 5 has always wanted to become a bigger company, and they have to make many high-demand games. Again, we wouldn't hear much else for a very long time. In 2015, Dark Cloud, and later Dark Cloud 2, managed to make it into Sony's PS2 on PS4 collection. There were only so many games that made it into this library, so doing this attracted many new fans to the series, as well as bringing back old fans. I'm pretty thankful Sony did this, because even though at this point it was a 13-year-old game, it showed how much interest there still was and that the community is alive. The addition of trophies to the game was also a major plus. It provided new goals for both games, and even pushed players like me to finally complete all challenges for the medals. Akihiro talked about the development of Dark Cloud and Dragon Quest some more in an interview for Famitsu magazine in 2018. They had a special feature for him in this issue since it was Level 5's 20th anniversary. He talked about how the overseas version of Dark Cloud was more improved than the original release, and that it had a system that was made for Dark Cloud 2 in it, and said that the game was basically like a Dark Cloud 1.5. Level 5 did this with a few of their games. The overseas version of Dark Cloud was drastically different from the Japanese release, having improved many parts of the game such as combat, bosses, and much more. They also did this to Rogue Galaxy. The North American release of Rogue Galaxy was over a year later than the original. They wanted to spend more time and to go all out to reach the similar international success they had before when improving their games like this. It always seemed to pay off for them. Akihiro saw the potential of these improvements. In the interview, he said, as for Dark Cloud, it released out of nowhere overseas and went on becoming a million seller. He also revealed their increase of resources and staff after their overseas version of Dark Cloud sold so well. Level 5 didn't have many people at first, but for Dark Cloud 2 and Dragon Quest VIII, they had over 100 employees and were collaborating with bigger companies. Lastly, in an interview by Polygon at Gamescom in 2017, Akihiro said, there has been a lot of requests and voices to create a Dark Cloud 3, or some form of Dark Cloud. He mentions the main reason why they have some trouble making it is because that IP is co-owned or managed by Sony Computer Entertainment, so it's not something that we can do or act upon on our own. So since Sony owns the IP, ultimately the creation of Dark Cloud 3 depends on whether or not they're willing to work on it. Although Hino did hint that Level 5 and Sony did have negotiations over Dark Cloud in the past. But he says, I'm not sure if that's happening now. They say it's more likely Professor Layton and other Level 5 franchises will get revamps and remasters, since everything beyond Layton and newer is all controlled by Level 5. There's a higher chance we'll see some of that, like older Layton games from when we were less well known. There's a high chance we might see that on more modern platforms, he says. During Level 5's growth and constant success, it's interesting that Dark Cloud 3 was still always relevant to them, and that it was brought up so much, even though Dark Cloud 2's release was in 2002, and that they were developing bigger games like Dragon Quest VIII and 9, Professor Layton, and more. The company really had a passion for those games. Their creative and unique RPG ideas, including the diorama, their attention to smaller details, the phenomenal soundtrack, and world design is what attracted fans to both Dark Cloud games. Although Dark Cloud 3 hasn't been made, and may never be made, I can't be too disappointed because of what we already have. They're very memorable and replayable, and are some of the top PS2 games ever made. As you may have already heard, Level 5 has apparently ceased their operations in North America. In 2019, they laid off a majority of their employees, leaving only a few left at their Abbey location. Those who remained said they were given every indication that the studio would be ceasing operations, so it looks like we won't be getting any more US releases of their games. It sounds unlikely they would bring back their operations here after doing something like that. This also means that if Dark Cloud 3 is made, then it won't be distributed to North America by them, but it is possible we could still see a US release if Level 5 were to hire an outside company to do the localizations. So like I said before, we shouldn't give up hope. Thanks for watching everyone. This is about all we have on Dark Cloud 3 right now. I hope we see more in the future, and that Level 5 will make a comeback in the US someday. Feel free to show your support or thoughts about Dark Cloud 3 in the comments, and if you'd like to see more from me, then please subscribe. This is Shaztopia. Have a wonderful day.